DND number 3, Finding Home in Jesus' Name, Chapter 12. Lisa entered the kitchen bright and early on a Monday morning to Grams and Chaz, chatting away about what Maddie's new kitchen is going to look like. "Oh, hi," she said, smiling sweetly. She went to Maddie and kissed her cheek and then turned to Chaz. "You're here awfully early." "I had to get an early start. The ranch is keeping me busy. I promised Miss Maddie I'd till up some weeds and put down some new soaker hoses for her garden." Lisa went to the stove and piled scrambled eggs, ham, and a biscuit onto a plate. "I'm going to have to introduce you to some lighter breakfast fare soon, or I'm going to be as big as a cow." "I'll start the research on that right away," Maddie said. Our guests will want to have good, healthy options to a regular country breakfast." Lisa laughed. "You really have embraced our project, haven't you?" "Oh, absolutely. I'm so happy. I feel like the cat that got the cream." "I'm happy that you're happy, Grams. And speaking of cats, have you seen Dixie?" "Not this morning." Something must have caught her attention. Well, she probably went out the pet door chasing a rabbit twice her size." Lisa sat next to Chaz, placing her hand on his arm. "You're awfully quiet this morning." "Hmm? Oh, I was just listening to the two of you chatter. I believe you're starting to pick up a southern accent." "I am not," Lisa said indignantly. "See? Did you hear that? You definitely made two syllables out of I am. Out of am." Lisa grinned. "Did I? Well, you all sound so cute. Maybe I'm trying to talk southern." "You all?" Chaz laughed. "It's y'all. You need to work on that one." "Well, how about y'all being quiet and let me eat my breakfast in peace?" Grams giggled as she rose and cleared her dishes. Then out of the blue she came around and kissed Chaz and Lisa both on the cheek. "What was that for?" Chaz asked. "I suppose it's just because I'm feeling so happy, and because I'm so glad you came home, Lisa. I'm so very glad that—" She stopped and sniffed. "Oh, now, look at me, crying like a baby." "Oh, Grams," Lisa cried, standing quickly and wrapping her arms around the tiny woman. "Please don't cry." "Oh, it's okay, dear," Maddie said, wiping at her eyes with a napkin. "They're just tears of joy." Chaz cleared his throat. "Well, ladies, I've got work to do." Placing his dishes in the sink, he started toward the kitchen door. "Besides, Phoebe's getting impatient out there." "Well, if I haven't said it lately, thanks for all you do, Chaz," Maddie said. He hugged her. "It's my pleasure. I suppose things are about to get pretty hectic around here, what with all the remodeling and building and the pool and patio going in." He winked at Maddie. "I sure hope Lisa really does know what she's doing." "I most certainly do," Lisa answered haughtily. "Everything is falling right into place. The loans will be paid off within the first 3 years. The advertising is the key, and I'm an expert at that." "Maddie tells me you intend to charge over $500 per night. Don't you think that's a little steep for these parts?" "Well, first, it's a package. And the clients won't be coming in from these parts, as you put it. They'll come in from New York and Los Angeles and Chicago and Boston. They'll come to Pine Forest for the peace and the novelty of country living, a getaway from the rat race, but they still have all the amenities, pool, sauna, fitness room, fine dining, entertainment, and of course, roping and riding, thanks to you and your dad. Well, I don't know that we let anyone rope, but we have some gentle horses that can be ridden, and we'll let them ride with us and check out the workings of a small family ranch. Speaking of riding, you need to learn yourself. Troy took me out a few times. I think I could get the hang of it." "You're going to have to prove that to me," he challenged. "You're on. Oh, Chaz, before you leave, let me give you the papers I told your dad I'd have drawn up. The releases and such our clients will sign. I left them in the truck. I'll be right back." He watched her go. It was difficult to have a casual conversation with her when all he could think about was the time they spent together as a couple and how much he wanted a repeat. Man, how he'd like to. Lisa's shrill scream ended his musings. He ran toward the front door. "No, no, no." She was sprawled on the porch, wailing and crying. Chaz made his way to her side and then sobbed. "Oh, Lord Jesus." He turned to Maddie, who'd been right behind him. "Maddie, get her inside." Maddie somehow convinced Lisa to follow her into the house. Chaz pulled his knife and cut the string that suspended a bloody, lifeless Dixie above the porch steps. His vision blurred for just a split second. But he got himself under control. I'm going to get you, Chaz promised. New scene. How's she doing? Chaz asked Maddie later that afternoon as he carried a duffel bag and a backpack into the house. She hasn't spoken all day. She's up in her room just staring out the window. I can't get her to eat or drink. Well, I'll go up and try to talk to her. Which room do you want me to take? Oh, Chaz, are you really sure you want to stay here? It's only until I feel you're safe. I won't be able to sleep at night worried about my two favorite girls over here all alone in this big house. Well, I'm grateful to you. You're a good boy, Chaz. Always have been. So I think you should take the yellow room right across from Lisa's room. That way you can keep an eye on her. He nodded and started up the steps. I'll go speak to her now, and I'll let you know how it goes. He deposited his bags in the yellow room and knocked softly on Lisa's door. She didn't answer, so he turned the knob and opened the door. She stood by the window, staring out over the backyard. Lisa, how you feeling, hon? Chaz waited a few moments for her to speak, and when she didn't, he moved forward. His hands came to rest on her shoulders. Sweetheart, I know this hurts, but you have to pull out of it. At the sound of her sniffle, he looked around for a box of tissues and went to retrieve one. When he stood by her once again, he gently turned her around to face him and wiped her tears. How could anyone hurt a tiny, defenseless little creature like that? He's a sicko, Lisa, but we will catch him. Look, I want you to go wash your face and come downstairs and have something to eat. She shook her head. I don't want to do anything. I keep thinking about her little body hanging there, about what she must have gone through. She didn't suffer. It was a quick death. He cut her throat. He knew he had to work fast in order to not get caught in broad daylight. Cut her throat. She put her hands to her head as if the motion could blot out the image. Just go. Leave me alone. Well, that's not going to happen. Chaz, I don't want to argue with you. Well, then don't. The tears started again. Lisa, this is a hard thing. Death is a hard reality to grasp. But you have to keep living. Life goes on. It feels like I don't want to go on. I know. He had to force himself to breathe through the sudden pain. I know. But you have to make yourself. He lifted her chin. Time will make the pain ease. It never goes away completely, but it will take the major edge off. You just have to give it time. And until that happens, you have to keep living. You have to eat and sleep and do your work. Well, with all due respect, it's not your pet that was brutally murdered. She turned to face him. What if you found Bibi with her throat slit? His jaw clenched, but he spoke softly. I know more about this than you can imagine. Well, then tell me about it, please, because I'm trying desperately to understand. Chaz stepped back, running a hand through his hair. His heart beating so loud he could barely hear what Lisa was saying. It was time. He grabbed her hand. Come on. Where are we going? You'll see. He drug her downstairs. Maddie, I'm taking Lisa for a drive. Oh, good. That will be nice. She resisted going out on the porch, but he tugged her hard, and she had to follow or be drugged, and he'd scrubbed the blood from the steps, but there was definitely a stain, so he moved her past it quickly. Once in the Jeep, he strapped her in and gunned the engine. They didn't speak. He drove toward his parents' home, then veered off on a dirt road that appeared to disappear into the woods. He drove another half a mile before their destination came into view. Lisa gasped. This is your house? Yes. It's beautiful. Thanks, he said softly, looking up at the structure with pride. I built it myself. Oh, Chaz, you built it yourself? It's amazing. Well, I had some help. Josh and Evan and even Troy, and my dad and Tyson helped too. They'd come over on the weekends or at night and help me work on whatever was my latest project. I'm impressed. She lifted her head to gaze at the architecture. It was a log cabin, but cabin hardly described the building. It appeared to have at least 2 stories, maybe 3. It had obviously been built to blend with and even be camouflaged by the surrounding forest. He took her by the elbow and led her up the stairs of a giant porch. The roof of the porch formed the floor of a balcony above. He opened the door and let her in. The log walls were charming, but they were the only thing that was charming, because there was no furniture except for a small table in the kitchen. The rest of the home appeared to be empty. He led her through the house, toward a circular staircase. Once upstairs, he pulled her down a hall to the main bedroom and opened the door. A rumpled king-size bed and cluttered dresser were the only pieces of furniture here. A navy blue comforter lay half on, half off the bed. Boots lay on the floor along with a pair of jeans. A towel hung over the doorknob of a door that apparently led to the bathroom. He made no apologies for the mess, instead sat her on the end of the bed and motioned for her to stay. She watched as he went to a walk-in closet and disappeared. A few minutes later he reappeared with a cardboard box and sat it down on the floor beside the bed. Standing in front of her, he drew a deep breath. "I have something to tell you." "Okay." "It's a story, really." "Okay, I'm listening." He ran a hand through his blonde hair and began to pace. 3 years ago, I was a paramedic working for the Pine County Fire Department. I was on my fourth day of a 4 days on, 4 days off work schedule. I can't tell you how much I was looking forward to those days off. He stopped, checking to make sure he had her attention before he went on and swallowing down the lump in his throat at the same time. It was 8 o'clock at night when we got buzzed. There was an accident up on Highway 72, a hit and run. A few witnesses said it was a white pickup and it looked as if the person driving it was drunk. They said the car had flipped several times and hit a tree. I arrived on scene and moved quickly toward the car. It didn't register in my mind that the car looked vaguely familiar to me. It was upside down and crushed beyond recognition. On scene there was a woman, a young woman. He had to stop a moment. "Chaz," Lisa said gently, "sit down." She patted the bed beside her. He shook his head. "No, I have to get this out." He drew a deep breath and went on. She was covered in blood. She had been thrown from the car. Half of her head had been completely crushed. Her eyes were still open, but she was dead. There was no life there. Inside the car, still strapped in her car seat, was a little girl. A sweet, blonde-haired, brown-eyed little girl, hanging upside down. His eyes filled with tears, but he went on. The car must have flipped several times. The little girl's neck was broken. Her little body was mangled and bloody. It just couldn't take the trauma. He stopped because his throat became clogged. "It must have been awful for you, Chaz. I'm so sorry. Here I was making a fuss about a kitten. The things you must have seen in that job." She shook her head. "Let me finish. What I haven't told you yet is that the woman, she was my wife. And the little girl, she was my daughter." Lisa's gasp made him stop again. Her hand flew to cover her mouth. "Oh, no. Oh, Chaz, no." She began to cry softly, yet somehow she knew to not go to him and not crowd him and to let him continue to talk. He blinked, and the tears coursed down his cheeks. "I went berserk. I really don't remember everything that happened after that. They had to pull me away. They shot me up with something. Over the next few days and weeks, I fell apart. I barely remember the funeral. It was all a big fog, as if I were seeing everything from far away, and I couldn't communicate with anyone around me." The tears ran freely now. "My family, though, my family refused to let me go. They kept at me. They stood by me. My mom practically force-fed me. One day my brother actually drugged me into the shower, just tossed me in with my clothes on." He swiped a hand over his face and drew a breath. "It was a long way back for me. So you see, Lisa, I really do know and understand how you feel. I really do know about forcing myself to get up in the morning, to get dressed, to put food into my mouth and chew it and swallow it and then do it again and again. And I also know that it will get better. It will, and the pain will fade. I even know that you can eventually be open to finding another love. I know that because I have. For 3 years I thought my life was over, and then you came into it and everything changed. Now, I'm glad I forced myself to live. I'm glad I'm still alive because I found you, Lisa. I found you, and I fell in love with you." She rose, moving to him, her tears falling as freely as his. "Chaz," she whispered as she put her arms around him. He took her face in his hands, and she took his face in her hands, and their mouths melded. They tasted the salt of each other's tears, they inhaled the sweetness of each other's essence, and they found comfort in each other's soul. He yielded his pain to her and turned it over to her for safekeeping, and she gave herself to him, giving comfort and complete trust and understanding. "I love you, Lisa," he whispered softly. "I love you too, Chaz," she answered, for the first time giving him the words he craved. He opened his eyes and looked into hers. "I do," she said quietly. With a smile now, his head dipped to kiss her mouth, softly, gently, but he panicked and groaned and pushed away, and she grabbed him, her hands on either side of his face. "Stay with me," she said softly. "Right here with me, Chaz, right where I want you, right where you belong. I love you." His vision blurred, his heart pounded, and he cried. New scene. They'd sat on the bed talking, finally stretched out side by side until silently they lay face to face, looking into each other's eyes, into each other's soul. It was Lisa who finally spoke. "Why did you wait to tell me?" It was several moments before he answered. "I didn't want you to be with me out of pity or compassion. I wanted to have a real, healthy relationship with you and not feel like a man stripped of, well, of your manhood," she asked. "Of your pride?" "Yeah, I guess both of those things. You, Chaz, are all man. Feeling grief for the loss of a loved one is natural, it's expected. I don't understand your line of thinking. Yes, of course I would feel compassion for your loss, but I wouldn't be with you because of that compassion." He rolled to his back and sighed deeply. "It's more than that. I'm having visions, flashbacks. That's the real problem." "Understandable to come upon the people you love, the people who mean the most to you in this world, and find them like you did." She shook her head. "I'd say a few nightmares are in order." "It's more than that. There are nightmares, yes, but sometimes I'm completely awake. I can't control it. It can happen when I'm talking to someone, or eating, or out riding fences, or—" He stopped, unsure if he should go further. He knew, though, that if he and Lisa were to have any kind of relationship, she had to know everything. "It can happen when I'm kissing you, or holding you, or if I were to make love with you." Her eyes met his, and realization struck. "And it happened that night at the lake?" "Yes. One minute I'm kissing you, the next I'm kissing a corpse. It might be easier to deal with if sometimes I simply saw her face, but it's always as I saw her that night, bloody and lifeless." She moved to lay her head on his chest. "That night at the lake, I realized that I wasn't ready yet for a relationship with you or with anybody, and that I may never be ready. After that, I was terrified of being near you because being near you brings strong feelings, and those strong feelings could trigger another flashback. And that fear made me impotent in a way. How could I think you'd want to be involved with an impotent man? But wait, let me finish. I tried to pretend that you didn't matter to me and that you'd be better off without me, but I couldn't hide what I felt for you. You're the first. You're the only one since the accident that's been able to get through to me. You make me feel life again. You make me feel everything again. You've been in my life for 1 month, and I can't imagine ever letting you go. But I'm still afraid, Lisa. I'm afraid I'm not a whole man who can give you what you need. I never know when I'll have one of my episodes. So how can I subject you to that?" "Well, you let me decide what I want to be subjected to, okay? I'm in love with you, Chaz. Like you said, it's only been a month, and I can't imagine life without you. Crazy, I know. Together, though, I'm sure we can work through any obstacles." "Well, it's not that easy." "I didn't say it would be easy. But I'm not afraid of hard work, and you don't strike me as a type who is easily defeated. We'll do whatever we have to do to get through it. We'll make things work. But don't you see, Lisa, I don't want me to be your project, someone you're helping to overcome a problem. That is what robs me of my manhood. But I don't see you that way, Chaz. When I look at you, I see a man who takes on the weight of the world, who keeps his head held high even though his heart is breaking, who takes care of those he loves, be it his parents or his sisters, his friends, or a little old lady who lives down the road. A man who takes care of me and protects me, someone I depend on, admire, and respect, someone I turn to first when something bad happens, and someone who, when he kisses me, turns my knees to jelly and makes my heart swell with love. You make me feel like a real woman. You make me want to be a good person and to be someone who is worthy of you. Oh, Lisa, 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 what did I do to deserve the love of a woman like you? I want you to know something. I've never, not ever, since the accident, been able to speak to anyone about it until you. I mean, yes, people mention it to me. They offer me support and advice, but I always push them away. I walk away. I end the conversation. You're the only one I've ever initiated a conversation with about Carrie. Carrie, is that her name? Yes. And what's your daughter's name? Julie. Dear God, what a beautiful child she was. I thanked God for her every single day. She was so precocious and so. His voice choked with emotion. Lisa reached up and stroked his face. Do you have any pictures? Or would that be too much to handle right now? He rose. No, I'd like you to see them. I got the box out earlier to show you. That's why I brought you here to tell you. He grabbed the box still sitting on the floor beside the bed. Lisa rose up to sit beside Chaz. Reverently, he opened the box and pulled out remnants of a previous life. He showed her pictures of the wedding, of Julie's birth, of family gatherings, papers covered with crayon scribbles, and then an adult's handwriting that said, To Daddy, love Julie. They looked over everything in the box, talking and weeping together. Lisa saw pictures of how Chaz's house used to look, and he explained that he'd gotten rid of everything that reminded him of the life he'd shared with his wife. He told her funny stories of the antics of a 2-year-old. He told her of the typical doting grandparents and aunts and uncles and how difficult it was for him to face their pain as well as his own. Lisa listened and wept and stroked and sustained, supported and bolstered and reinforced as Chaz emptied his soul to her. It was much later, as they tucked the box back into the closet, that Lisa asked what she felt moved to ask. You said you thanked God for Julie every day. I haven't noticed you going to church on Sundays. I haven't been back to church since the accident. I couldn't understand how God could let that happen to two completely innocent people. Lisa nodded. Well, I get where you're coming from. How about you? Have you been going to church with Maddie? Lisa shook her head. I've never been to church. My mother said there is no God, and I guess I believed her. But knowing what I know now, I'm inclined to believe the opposite of anything my mother stood for. Maybe I'll look into the idea of a higher being. Do you mind if I ask what Carrie believed? Chaz sighed heavily, and tears welled in his eyes once again. Carrie was a believer. She was the strongest person I know. Her faith was unshakable. She and I both claimed to be saved through the blood of Jesus, but she was the one who truly believed that Jesus was real. I mean, really real. He exists, she used to say. She said, he's not some airy-fairy entity that someone made up. He exists. He was resurrected into a physical, perfected body, and therefore he takes up space, and he's real. I'd asked her how she can be so sure, and she'd say, just ask him to tell you and listen patiently. He'll let you know. That's what she said over and over. And did you? A tear ran down his cheek as he shook his head. I never did. There never seemed to be enough time. Of course, that was just an excuse to not humble myself and to not get down on my knees, to not admit I needed God in my life. If only, if only she hadn't died before I did as she asked me to do. It was important to her, and I didn't take the time. Lisa took his hands. Well, you could do it now. We could do it together, you and me. He looked up and peered into her eyes and knew it was meant to be. He and Lisa, the beating of two hearts in synchrony. New scene. Well, there you two are, Maddie said as Chaz and Lisa came through the door. I was beginning to get worried. I'm sorry, Grams, Lisa said. I didn't realize how long we've been gone. Oh, that's okay. I'm just hoping you're feeling better. Lisa smiled at Chaz. I am. Much better. Oh, well, good, she said, looking back and forth between the two. I was just about to put dinner away. Have you eaten? No, they answered in unison. Well, could I interest you in some beef tips sautéed with onions and peppers over pasta in a light butter sauce, tomato and feta cheese salad, and strawberry mousse? And I thought things couldn't get any better, Chaz said with a grin. Maddie ushered them into the dining room where she'd set the table with candles and her fine china and silver. Grams, this is lovely. Is there a special occasion I don't know about? Maddie shrugged. It's been a hard day for you and for all of us, and sometimes a good relaxing meal in a pleasant setting can help. Besides, I'm practicing some recipes for the inn. Lisa hugged her. Thank you, Grams, but there's only 2 place settings. Aren't you eating? Oh, I ate almost an hour ago. Go on now, sit down and let me serve you. Absolutely not, Lisa said. Don't you argue with me, young lady. You live in my house, you do what I say. Lisa's jaw dropped. Maddie laughed. I've always wanted to say that. Maybe if I had, when Louise was young, things would have turned out differently. Oh, Grams, Lisa said softly. Sit, no arguments. Chaz held a chair for Lisa. I'd do what she says if I were you. I've always said you were a smart little boy, Maddie said with a smile. She turned to Lisa. Now, I'll go get dinner, and you and Chaz can talk or whatever. Chaz grinned. Whatever, sounds good. Maddie stopped at the entrance to the dining room. Oh, and by the way, about what I said, it's our home, not mine. Astonished, Lisa opened her mouth to speak, but Maddie left quickly. Chaz took Lisa's hand as they waited to be served. He brought it to his lips and kissed it. I feel light, like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. She smiled at him. Me too. It's like there's been this pain, the wondering why you didn't want me anymore. And suddenly the pain is gone and I feel like I could fly. I actually feel happy. I don't think I've ever said that. Not ever before in my entire life. Well, that's sad, Lisa. Hopefully now I can make you happy. You have, Chaz. Today you took care of me and you honored me by sharing your innermost pain with me. And we connected on a level I've never connected before with anyone. And there's a lot more out there to be had, he said. Like what? Well, for example, this new project you're working on. I have a feeling that it's going to make you very happy. Oh, it is. It already does. I get excited about all the plans and about making Grams happy, and that gives me happiness. And it's not just the finished product that will make me happy. It's the getting there. But up till now, there's been a shadow hanging over everything. After today, that shadow is gone. Well, not exactly gone. I mean, there is still someone out there trying to get rid of you and threatening to hurt you and those you love. And those I love? Yeah, I was going to tell you. There was a note on the bottom step under a rock. Lisa's throat closed. And it said Dixie was just the beginning. If you don't leave, everything and everyone you love is in danger. Oh, no. No, no, no. She stood and walked toward the window. What am I going to do? Do you even have to ask? Yes, if my being here is putting Grams in danger, and you, and Joe, and Shirley, and Megan. Oh, please, God, what do I do? Lisa, come sit down. She sat, her mind in a whirl. Do you trust me? I do, yes. Then listen to me. Giving in to threats is never the right thing to do. You cannot give them the power they seek. Someone is threatening to hurt you or those you love if you don't leave. Think about what that means. If you left, what stops them from hurting those you love anyway, or from getting more from you? They already know you're afraid and would bow to their request. Well, then what can I do to protect them? He smiled at her. I took the note to Tyson. He's contacted Joe. I spoke with my family. We're all ready for the fight. Wasn't it you a week or so ago who said no one is going to send you away from the home you just found? Yes, I did say that, but that was when I thought I was the only one in danger. Who's in danger? Mattie asked as she carried a tray in and set it on the edge of the table. I just told her about the note. Oh, pish. No one is going to force me to live in fear. They've got another thing coming if they try anything. Oh, yes, sir. We're ready now. Lisa smiled at her. But Grams. Buck Grams nothing. Buck up, girl. We're about to have a war. Chaz raised his eyebrows at Lisa. That's the strength of homegrown people. That's your legacy, Lisa. So what do you say now? Lisa shrugged. I guess I say bring on the main course. Mattie started toward the door. It's on its way. That is the end of chapter 12.